Well, joining us live now is EWTN News Vatican correspondent Colm Flynn. Colm, thanks for your time this evening. So what do you think the Pope's legacy is?
Pete, great to speak to you. And, compliments and a beautiful recap there of the Pope's legacy, by the way. A legacy is never simple, and especially a papal legacy at that, very complicated. It's interesting when you talk about in your report, the Popes of First. 2 weeks ago, I was in Buenos Aires in Argentina making a documentary for EWTN about who was the man that became Pope Francis. Because before the world got to know Francisco, he was Jorge Mario Bergoglio, growing up in and around the slums of Buenos Aires. And it was interesting, someone joked there, because of the controversies around his papacy, because of how progressive he was seen, one of our producers, a local man, said to me, we say here he was the first Latin American Pope and will probably be the last one. But that's really what it comes down to, that there were some people who championed his emphasis, constant emphasis on the care for the environment, his constant emphasis on looking out for the migrants. And then there are others who are more confused and dismayed about some of the approaches he took to issues. I'll give you an example. Last year, I went with the Holy Father to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, East Timor, and Singapore. It was the longest papal trip of his entire papacy, 40,000 miles. It was grueling, and at his age, incredible that he went. But on his last leg of that stop, that trip in Singapore, a young Muslim man in an interfaith religious meeting said to him, "Holy Father, I am bullied sometimes because I'm a Muslim. What do you say to that?" And the Pope said, well, we should never say to anyone, our religion is better than yours. My religion is more important to yours. And we said, okay. But then he went on from that and he said, because all religions lead to God. Every religion is the same. We're all saying the same thing, but in different languages, and we all lead to God. So on one side, the progressive and more liberal side of the Catholic Church will say that is a wonderful, warm and beautiful thing to say to that other person. On the other hand, the more traditional side of the Catholic Church, they would say, well, hang on a second. Every day when I go to Mass, I decree that I believe in one true apostolic church, that there is one church, and Jesus said, through me and only through me will be salvation. So things like that confused a lot of people. They say, well, if the Pope is saying this, are we changing the teachings of the Church? What does this actually mean? But when he became Pope in 2013, you have to remember the global sexual abuse crisis. Pete, there were many scandals in the Church. A lot of people think he was the right Pope for the right time.
Yeah, and he did say that years ago, he said that he would ultimately be judged on his response to that sex abuse scandal that engulfed the Church. Now, I remember I was there last time, and he was a surprise choice, and he came out in a very relaxed tone, buonasera. It was very endearing. But this time around, there doesn't appear to be a clear front runner. I know there's a few names that have been tossed about, but after a progressive Pope this time around, does it go back to Benedict? Does it become more conservative? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I was saying that to your colleague earlier, that we have a saying in Italy that it goes fat Pope, skinny Pope, which means that you have liberal, you have conservative, you have liberal, conservative. Pope Benedict XVI, the funny thing is, the media pick their heroes and their villains, and often a legacy and an interpretation of a figure can be really skewed through certain outlets. But really when it boils down to it, although their style was very different and their approach was different, when you read the teachings and the beliefs of, for example, Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, they're very much in alignment because, as you pointed out in that report prior to me, on that flight when he said, look, if someone is gay and they seek God, who am I to judge? And that comment was front page of the New York Times. It went all over the world. Yeah. But on the other hand, Pope Francis said at times, look, the sacrament of marriage has always been and will always be between a man and a woman, and that will never change. But comments like that, of course, with certain networks, they don't get pushed or spread as far. So you have on one hand, you have the style and the tone changing, certainly, but the core teaching under Francis, not really changing at all.
All right. Hey, Colm, nice to talk to you. Thanks for your time this evening. Thanks for staying up late for us, and look forward to talking to you again. That's Colm Flynn there, coming to us from Rome.